Artificial intelligence is everywhere these days. It's affecting how we live, work, and interact. From chatbots to facial recognition to financial algorithms, its impact is hard to ignore. But let's be real for a second. AI hasn't exactly been a win for everyone, especially for Black people. And no, I'm not talking about how AI has the power to replace jobs. That's another story. I'm talking about the systemic racism and bias that's been implanted in AI, a problem that's becoming increasingly visible as this technology becomes more popular. There's a clear pattern here, and it's time we talk about it.
When we prompted the technology to generate a photo of a person receiving social services, it generated only non-white and primarily darker-skinned people. Results for a productive person, meanwhile, were uniformly male, majority white, and dressed in suits for corporate jobs.
AI doesn't exist in a vacuum. It learns from the world we give it. And if that world is biased, AI becomes biased too. There have already been lots of examples of this issue popping up even in popular AI tools like ChatGPT. Let's go through them, starting with one of the most serious issues, facial recognition systems. A report by the National Institute of Standards and Technology found that facial recognition algorithms misidentify Black and Asian faces up to 100 times more often than white faces. This is an imbalance that actually affects lots of lives.
Let's not make a show in front of your wife and kids because you are under arrest.
This is Robert Williams. 3 years ago, he was arrested on his driveway for a crime he hadn't committed.
They made a mistake, baby. It's okay.
The reason? Artificial intelligence mistook him for this man, who was suspected to have stolen thousands of dollars worth of watches.
In 2020, Robert Williams, a Black resident from Detroit, was falsely arrested in front of his home for a crime he did not commit, a mistake caused by artificial intelligence and white officials. Williams was accused of stealing thousands of dollars worth of watches from a Shinola store, based on a match generated by facial recognition technology. The AI system had identified Williams as the suspect, even though the actual thief, who was also Black, looked very different from him. Williams pointed this out immediately, but the officers explained that their facial recognition software had identified him as the culprit. Despite his protests, he was detained and taken into custody. Williams was held for 30 hours before those white authorities admitted their mistake and finally released him. This is just one example of how AI seemingly was not designed for people of color. Williams is not the only Black person who has fallen victim to this.
I guess I would say I lost faith in the justice system to know that you could be locked up for something that you've never done.
In 2022, Randall Karan Reed, a 28-year-old Black man from Georgia, was also wrongfully arrested due to another misidentification by facial recognition technology. While driving to his mother's home near Atlanta, Reed was pulled over and informed of warrants from Jefferson and East Baton Rouge parishes in Louisiana, places he had never visited. The warrants accused him of using stolen credit cards to purchase approximately $15,000 worth of designer purses. This misidentification led to Reed being detained for nearly a week in jail. His family hired an attorney who presented photos and videos showing significant differences between Reed and the suspect in the surveillance footage. Despite this evidence, Reed still endured 6 days of wrongful incarceration before the warrants were withdrawn. There are countless other cases like this.
African Americans are affected more by this technology than individuals of a different race.
Well, you know, there's always risk when you go to jail, but I felt more in danger when I was being detained because I know it was for something I didn't do.
There are countless other cases like this. The question is, why does AI continue to fail so often when it comes to identifying Black people? The reality is, this problem comes from the built-in biases in AI systems, which happen because they are trained using unfair or incomplete data and are often developed without input from a diverse range of people. In short, this is what happens when AI databases are developed by predominantly white teams. The AI systems developed for use by police are not only flawed, but also highly biased. Predictive policing algorithms are designed to predict where crimes might happen, but instead of being neutral tools, they often make existing racial inequalities worse. These systems rely on historical crime data, which is often skewed because law enforcement has targeted Black and minority neighborhoods more heavily for decades. As a result, the algorithms unfairly flag these communities as high crime areas, leading to even more policing there. For example, a report by ProPublica found that risk assessment algorithms used in the criminal justice system were twice as likely to label black defendants as high risk compared to white defendants, even when the white defendants were more likely to commit another crime. Another study showed that predictive policing systems keep repeating the same biased patterns, creating a cycle where over-policed communities are flagged for more surveillance, even when no real increase in crime exists. These are just a few examples of the harm biased AI can inflict on black individuals, and there are many more. This bias has serious consequences that stretch far beyond law enforcement. Similar problems have been showing up in AI image generators, which rely on large data sets to create their outputs. For instance, experiments have shown that AI image generation systems can sometimes get quite stereotypical when tasked with producing images for professions. A study published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences analyzed several image generation systems and found that professions linked to authority, prestige, and wealth were overwhelmingly represented by white males, while service-oriented roles were more often associated with Black or Latino individuals. Developers frequently promise to diversify their data sets, but progress has been slow. For example, researchers have noted that even updates to widely used AI models often fail to address these biases effectively. A report by MIT Media Lab found that while some AI systems improved in recognizing diversity when explicitly prompted, they still reinforce racial stereotypes in professions. And it's not only in image generation, but in language processing as well. A study published in August 2024 revealed that large language models, like GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, show hidden racism by associating African American English with negative stereotypes. The models were more likely to suggest that speakers of African American English be assigned less prestigious jobs, be convicted of crimes, and receive harsher sentences. AI was designed to make tasks faster and more efficient. It clearly has the potential to carry and spread harmful biases. This can happen whether the people creating it deliberately intended to cause harm or simply failed to consider the impact on others. AI bias extends to financial systems as well and affects not only race but also gender. In 2019, an investigation by the Wall Street Journal revealed that Apple's credit card algorithm systematically gave women lower credit limits than men, even when their financial profiles were identical. The issue came to light when tech entrepreneur David Heinemeier Hansson publicly reported that his wife, who shares the same financial accounts and credit history as him, was offered a credit limit 20 times lower than his. Many others reported similar cases. This is because the algorithms that decide creditworthiness often rely on historical financial data filled with gender and racial biases. A study by the Brookings Institution found that these algorithms perpetuate discriminatory practices in lending, often putting women and minorities at a disadvantage. In a way, this issue in AI mirrors long-standing systemic discrimination, like redlining, which excluded Black families from fair access to loans and homeownership for decades. A similar case happened in 2021, when Mary Lewis, a Black woman, was denied an apartment in Massachusetts based on a low AI-generated tenant score by Safe Rent Solutions. The algorithm did not account for her housing voucher and overly relied on credit information, which disproportionately affects low-income and minority applicants. This led to a class action lawsuit alleging discrimination, resulting in a $2.2 million settlement and modifications to the company's screening practices. And just in 2024, a federal judge allowed a groundbreaking class action lawsuit to move forward against Workday, a company that offers AI-powered hiring software. The lawsuit claims that this software, designed to help employers screen job applicants, unfairly discriminates against certain groups, including Black, older, and disabled candidates. According to the allegations, the AI system relies on biased data, leading it to favor certain applicants over others, even when they have similar qualifications. These cases clearly show how AI in financial systems can unintentionally worsen existing inequalities. Despite public outcry and promises from companies to fix the issue, the lack of transparency in how these algorithms work remains a huge problem. Without clear regulations and ethical oversight, AI-powered tools risk making the very problems they claim to solve even worse. Healthcare algorithms, too, have shown racial bias. A 2019 study published in Science revealed that an algorithm widely used by hospitals to allocate care consistently rated Black patients as less in need of medical attention compared to white patients, even when their health profiles were identical. This algorithm, which impacted millions of patients, was designed to prioritize care for individuals deemed to have the highest health risks. However, it relied on historical healthcare spending as a key indicator of health needs, a metric that is deeply flawed. The study found that Black patients historically spent less on healthcare than white patients, not because they were healthier, but due to systemic barriers such as unequal access to medical resources, discrimination in treatment, and socioeconomic factors. These disparities were reflected in the data, leading the algorithm to assume that Black patients required less care than they actually did. For example, a Black patient with chronic conditions like diabetes or heart disease might receive a lower priority score compared to a white patient with the same conditions, simply because the data incorrectly assumed their lower spending meant they had fewer medical needs. A report by the Brookings Institution highlighted that healthcare algorithms used in areas such as patient risk assessment, treatment allocation, and disease prediction often unfortunately replicate and amplify systemic inequalities. And another analysis from the New England Journal of Medicine pointed out that even well-intentioned algorithms can unintentionally make disparities worse if they are trained on data that reflects historical inequities. I'm sure many would agree that the examples we discussed today are deeply disturbing. At the same time, they are unfortunately nothing new, just another form of reckless racism that we've been dealing with for years. The reality is, AI systems are only as biased as the teams and data that create them. According to a report by McKinsey & Company, Black professionals made up just about 8% of the workforce in U.S. technology companies. And when diverse perspectives are absent during AI development, these tools can end up failing to serve all communities equitably. AI models rely on vast datasets to learn patterns, but when those datasets underrepresent certain groups, the models inherit these biases. For example, an analysis by MIT Media Lab found that commercial facial recognition systems were 34% less accurate at identifying darker-skinned women compared to lighter-skinned men, largely due to skewed training data. When AI systems harm marginalized communities, they damage trust. A Pew Research Center survey showed that Black Americans are less likely to trust AI-driven technologies. And after everything we've discussed, it's completely understandable why some people would lose trust in AI. It still struggles to make everyone feel safe and included. Meanwhile, as we've mentioned before, many developers have been trying to solve these issues, but there have been instances where their attempts went overboard.
Google has paused the image generation ability of its AI Gemini after major backlash from conservatives over historically inaccurate depictions of races.
For example, creating diverse images of the U.S. founding fathers, so a different kind of diversity problem that Google admits.
Last week, users began to notice Google Gemini's image generator inserting people of color into scenarios that didn't make sense, like responding to a prompt for an image of a German World War II soldier with a picture of an Asian woman or a Black man.
In 2024, Google faced widespread criticism after its Gemini AI image generator created historically inaccurate images based on user prompts. For example, when asked to generate pictures of German World War II soldiers, the system produced images of Black men and Asian women, groups that were largely absent from such roles during that time. Similarly, prompts about the U.S. founding fathers led to images that included racial diversity inconsistent with historical facts. These inaccuracies sparked public backlash, with many accusing Google of rewriting history to appear more inclusive. In response to the controversy, Google paused Gemini's image generation feature, acknowledging the need to refine the AI to better align with user expectations and historical accuracy. As AI continues to evolve, finding the right balance between inclusivity, accuracy, and public perception remains a very complex task. The real question now is, how can society really improve the way AI treats people of color so that everyone can feel safer with this new technology? One of the most effective ways is by increasing representation in the tech industry. Initiatives like Google's AI for Social Good and partnerships with historically Black colleges and universities aim to bring more diverse voices into AI development. By expanding access to STEM education and funding minority-led startups, we can build more inclusive systems. These inclusive AI designs would benefit everyone. Methods like participatory design, which involve end users in the development process, can help identify hidden biases early on. Governments and organizations must also enforce accountability. Laws such as the EU's General Data Protection Regulation include provisions for algorithmic transparency, which can help identify and mitigate biases. Meanwhile, in the US, the Algorithmic Accountability Act aims to address similar issues, though its implementation remains limited. Artificial intelligence is definitely reshaping the world, but its benefits will remain unevenly distributed unless we address its flaws. The examples we talked about today on biased facial recognition, financial systems, and healthcare algorithms are screaming the urgent need for action. Building fair and equitable AI requires participation from all communities, both as users and creators. Let's remember, the power of AI lies in how we choose to use it. If we can foster diversity in AI development, train systems on inclusive data sets, and promote trust through accountability, we can create a future where this technology uplifts everyone rather than leaving anyone behind. The change starts with awareness and action, and that includes all of us. If you found this discussion helpful or eye-opening, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Have you ever witnessed bias in AI? And how do you think we can make AI more inclusive and fair for everyone? Also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future content. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you in the next one.